guys. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that's more than 2,000 years old. A story of war, terror, and one man's determination to bring down the greatest empire of his time. Imagine standing as a Roman soldier on the battlefield. You're ready to fight men with swords and shields, but suddenly, the ground begins to tremble, dust rises, and through the haze, you hear a thunderous roar. Towering beasts appear, larger than anything you've ever seen. These were Hannibal's war elephants, the ancient tanks that shook Rome to its core. Stick with me till the end, because this journey will show you how one man nearly broke the Roman Republic with the most unexpected weapon of all. And if you love epic stories from history, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another one. The Punic Wars, a story of betrayal, revenge, and the battle for the Mediterranean. Our story begins in the 3rd century BCE. Carthage, a powerful city in North Africa, stood locked in a deadly rivalry with Rome. Both wanted control over the Mediterranean. The result, the Punic Wars, 3 massive conflicts that would decide the fate of empires. In the 1st century, the Carthaginians, led by the great general Hannibal Barca, went to war with Rome. This was a war like no other. It was personal. Hannibal wanted revenge against Rome for destroying his father's empire. He led his armies across the Alps, straight into Italy. For years, he and his elephants terrorized the Italian peninsula. But in the end, Rome's sheer power and numbers prevailed. They defeated Hannibal and his army, but the story doesn't end there. In the next century, Carthage would rise again, only to be defeated again by Rome. And in the end, Carthage would be completely destroyed. But Carthage had something Rome didn't. From the plains of Africa, they brought forward beasts unlike any other elephants, standing nearly 10 feet tall, weighing over 5 tons, with tusks tipped with iron. They were not just animals, they were weapons of mass terror. The Romans had never seen anything like it. These elephants were trained to fight. They would trample the Roman infantry, toss them up in the air and gore them with their tusks. The Romans were terrified. They called them the horrors of war. And then there was Hannibal. He was the greatest general Carthage ever had. He led his elephants into battle against Rome and won. The Romans were defeated. Their cavalry was useless. Their infantry was terrified. Carthage had one big advantage over Rome, and that was these elephants. If they could bring more elephants to the war, if they could train them better, then maybe they could defeat the Romans once and for all. But elephants are expensive. They're hard to train. And as the war with Rome dragged on, Carthage's supply of elephants slowly dwindled, which meant that Hannibal's army grew weaker and weaker as the war went on. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it can be destroyed in one. And leading them was Hannibal Barca, one of the greatest military commanders in history. His bold plan, to strike Rome from the north through a route so dangerous, no one believed it was possible. The Alps were treacherous, almost impossible to cross, but Hannibal and his army made it through. They attacked the Romans, who were unprepared for such a northern invasion. Hannibal's elephants trampling all over the countryside, his cavalry riding through the hills, his infantry fighting in the streets. The Romans were able to hold off the Carthaginians for a while, but eventually they had to retreat into the mountains. It was there that Hannibal made his final stand, only to be defeated by a Roman general named Scipio Africanus. But Hannibal's story doesn't end there. He escaped and lived to fight another day, and boy, did he have a plan for Rome. This is one of the most epic battles in history, and you can watch the whole thing for free right now. The greatest general you've never heard of. In 218 BCE, Hannibal set out to invade Italy. His army was massive, 40,000 infantry, 9,000 cavalry, and about 37 elephants. Their journey across the freezing Alps was a nightmare. Soldiers died, horses slipped into ravines, snowstorms froze men alive. But Hannibal kept going. And when he reached Italy, Rome was stunned. They had never seen anything like it. Elephants playing the long game, huh? Check out this elephant graveyard. These guys were soldiers. They fought in battles across Europe and North Africa. Some of them even made it to India. But you can't play the long game if you don't have the stamina for it. What's the point of elephants if they can't cross a river, or carry a king to safety, or fight alongside their human counterparts? Elephants are amazing animals, but they're not invincible. They're not immortal. They need rest and water, just like the rest of us. But there's one thing they don't need: a rider. Because let's be real, no one's gonna ride an elephant into battle. No one except maybe Hannibal Barca. Elephants have been fighting alongside humans for thousands of years, but they weren't always on our side. In the ancient world, war elephants were trained by both sides to do one thing: kill. The Romans would face them head-on with their legions of soldiers in tight formations, disciplined and ready to fight. But when the elephants charged, all bets were off. Their trunks swung like whips, cracking soldiers' skulls. Their tusks impaled men and women, and their massive feet crushed bones like grapes. Horses panicked and ran away, and soldiers broke ranks and scattered. It wasn't just physical destruction, it was psychological warfare. The sight alone of an elephant thundering toward you could make even the bravest warrior turn and flee. These terrifying beasts were the ultimate weapon of war, a force to be reckoned with. A living nightmare that charged straight into the heart of battle. They fought in every major conflict from the Punic Wars to the Civil War and beyond. And they were instrumental in the rise and fall of empires. But elephants aren't just mindless killing machines. They're intelligent, self-aware beings with a kind of consciousness that we're only just beginning to understand. So how did we go from riding them in war to fearing them as weapons of mass destruction? At the Battle of Trebia in 218 BC, Hannibal's elephants broke through the Roman lines, and even at Cannae, one of the bloodiest battles in ancient history, they continued to wreak havoc. The Romans were terrified of these massive creatures, and even when elephants fell, their sheer weight crushed the soldiers beneath them. They were a nightmare on four legs. Hannibal Barca was a Carthaginian general who lived between 247 and 183 BC. He is best known for his military campaigns in the Second Punic War, in which he led an army that included war elephants against the Roman Republic. Although the war ended in defeat for Carthage, Hannibal's military genius and courage have been celebrated throughout history. One of the most famous battles of the Second Punic War was the Battle of Zama, which took place in 202 BC. This was the final battle between Hannibal and the Roman general Scipio Africanus. Despite being outnumbered, Hannibal's army fought bravely, and it wasn't until the war elephants entered the fray that the Romans began to falter. Hannibal had hoped that his elephants would break through the Roman lines and cause widespread panic, but Scipio's men were prepared for them. The Romans had built a special fence around their camp to keep the elephants out, and they were able to repel the attacks. The Roman Empire was built on adapting and overcoming, and one of the greatest challenges they faced were these giant war elephants. They were so big and strong that it seemed like there was no way to stop them, but Rome was nothing if not adaptive. Over time, they developed counter-tactics. Soldiers opened up lanes in their formations, letting the elephants pass harmlessly through. Archers and skirmishers targeted their eyes and bellies, their weakest points, and what once seemed unstoppable was finally tamed. But it gets even better because these tactics weren't just used against the elephants. The Romans adapted them against the chariots to using their own size and strength against them, turning their weapons against them until even the mighty war elephant with its sharp tusks and thick hide was no match for the ingenuity and willpower of the Roman soldiers. And that is why the Roman Empire lasted so long. Hannibal's elephants didn't win Carthage the war. Eventually, Rome rose stronger than ever, but the legend of those battles lived on. To the Romans, the memory of facing an army with elephants was unforgettable. A mix of awe, terror, and respect. Hannibal's war elephants were more than just animals. They were a symbol of boldness, of innovation, and of how far one man would go to challenge an empire. And though Rome survived, it never forgot the thunder of those ancient tanks that once shook its very foundations. The year is 2000 BC. For decades, warriors from a small village in northern Iraq have defended their home from invaders. But now the village is under attack from an army 10 times its size. As the warriors prepare to defend their homeland one last time, they know they may not survive. And in the end, they're going to need a miracle to win the battle. As the largest army in the world at the time, the Assyrian Empire was known for its brutality, but the village had one secret weapon, the burning spear. This invention allowed the villagers to set the enemy on fire from a safe distance, giving them a powerful advantage in battle. But even with the help of the burning spear, the village was overwhelmed by the sheer number of enemies. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, a warrior from the village came up with a plan. He would lead the Assyrians away from the village and into the desert where they could be picked off one by one. It was a risky strategy, but it worked, and in the end, the village was saved. To hear more stories of ancient warfare, stay tuned. And that was the story of Hannibal's war elephants, the ancient tanks that shook Rome. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this journey into history, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more epic stories like this one. You can also check out our other videos, which are all about amazing history. We've got the Spanish Civil War, the Mongol Empire, the Roman invasion of Britain, the Battle of Midway, and so much more. There's something for everyone, so come on, join the fun. Click that subscribe button and get ready to learn. You can also follow us on social media for even more historical tales. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring history.